want to say good morning, but it's not morning anymore. I want to say hello, Robert. Thanks for taking the time and being with me today. And I'm always saying, a few weeks ago I asked you, and so I'm starting here this as well. A few weeks ago we had a little chat, and I asked you, would you be interested in, or would you be willing and interested in to being part of this podcast? And you said yes, very fast, actually.
Yeah.
Um, Normally I say maybe you introduce yourself because I have a lot of words I can introduce someone, but I think it's the best option to introduce yourself and then let's walk through. I'm very curious. I hope that everyone who's listening or watching, we were just adjusting the lights and everything, so everything is be perfect for other people, for the few that are watching. And yeah, I'm curious to get to know you a bit better. And yeah, maybe you just start.
Yeah. Hello, Elias. Thanks for having me today. When I saw your message and you started the first back and forward chats, I immediately said, yeah, why not? It's always interesting. And my name is Robert Vogel, also called Robbie the Roboter, at least in LinkedIn, and at least how my elderly son calls me, as I'm in the last 20 years worked in automation, in industrial automation, robotics, and now with drives. So, and even my friends are making joke of me because at the beginning, when I started at one of the big robotic companies here in Germany, and I said what I'm doing, I always made those movements and the sound. So it was always Robbie the Roboter. And actually now I'm part of the sound because that's the drives and the gears who make the sound, not the robot itself. It's the drives and gears. And now after 20 years working in automation and robotics, I'm the of the robotics.
So you finally made your way through. I mean, Robi. So in German, it's Robi der Roboter.
Yes.
Yes.
In English, it sounds Robbie the Roboter, but yeah, in German, it's Robbie the Roboter.
I really like people who are passionate about what they do, and so for me, coming into the world of robotics and automation was just the very last few years. So I'm very excited to have someone with your expertise. And you were mentioning another company you were working for already, but maybe we can go even further back then, and it can actually start. A lot of people are telling me they were interested in not necessarily robotics, but in technical things in general. And the classic is, yeah, I used to disassemble radios that I had at home. What is your journey? How did things for you started for you?
So in my heart, I'm a technician, but my passion is really also the topic of sales. So I started actually as a salesman, or the guy who's selling fruit and vegetables on the farmer's market every Saturday morning, starting at 4:30 to prepare the booth, to make everything nice, that the vegetables are in the right light, and so on. And that was my thing I did during high school. I worked on a farmer's market, and my dad was already a salesman. He sold construction equipment. So something is close to me with sales, and to bring sales and high-tech technology together. So I started then my first job at one of the German major robot companies.
I mean, this is a recurring topic. A lot of technical founders, they are very good at being technical and they are working on the product, which is their main, which is and should be their main topic. But a lot of people are forgetting that in the very end, you do need to sell a product. So with my last guest, we were talking about how to get into manufacturing, especially if you're in the AI topic. But you're getting into manufacturing is sales, and in the very end, every single person in a company should be in sales because you do need to sell the actual product. So I really like that you're very technical. You're very deep rooted in technical, but your heart is being a sales guy. And I think one cannot live without the other. And I think both parties like to tell themselves. sales is not as important, and the sales guys, yeah, the product is just is a part, but you can exchange engineers. I don't like neither of those approaches. I'm a huge fan of we can only make this work together. We can only make this, yeah, make this happening together. And so you said that you started very early in the sales process, and but right after, did you went to university, or how can maybe can we can walk me a little bit through?
I was at high school, gymnasium, and then I'm that old, so I also were at the armed forces here in Germany, which you don't need to go nowadays. So I was there for 10 months, and after that I started to study industrial engineer. And it was always for me clear I want to do something technical and I want to do sales, and I will not selling clothes or anything other. So it was always technology and Investitionsgüter, investment goods.
Good.
Yeah, goods. So that's how I choose then also my studies. Looking past, I might have maybe chosen another major, not mechanical engineer, more software or more controls, because actually the controls is what drives us. You need a good hardware. Without hardware, nothing will work. But looking 20 years back, now software and controls is probably a little bit higher ranked than the mechanical engineer. But it's at the end, it's technology. I'm a technician and bringing that together with sales. So I did my studies there, was abroad in internships and also in theoretical semesters. So I was in the US and I was in Sweden during my studies, and then started an international trainee program at KUKA in 2006. Yeah, the year when the World Cup was in Germany. So I started there, international trainee program. Was also there abroad for a couple of months. Was really on site where the robots and the system engineering really takes place and where you bring the robots alive. So commissioning on site. And at KUKA, I was on the KUKA system side, so the line builder side, and a site period takes between 1 and 3 years. So a whole project is 4, 5, 6 years if a OEM introduce a new car. So the project of building a complete new body shop with thousands of robots, yeah, takes place a time on site. And that's really when 1,000 robots starting step by step, all the fixtures and the hardware coming together, and the first robots awake then and make their first movements. And after 1 year, 2 years, you have 1,000 robots working together and producing a car. I mean, that is fascinating. That is fascinating. And yeah,
For some people.
For some people, but I don't know if there are many people, if they see a body shop with 1,000 robots, everybody is at least a little bit curious in this looking.
Yeah, true. But I mean, there's some people that are this is interested, and some people are just as enthusiastic as you are. I'm a little bit jealous, to be honest, because this kind of trainee program. When I was working at Siemens, I remember that I met someone who was chosen to be one of. There's a trainee program as well, so it's 3 years, and every single year is in a different country, and within the different country, you are in different departments. So they're really trying to show you how the company is working, how things are working. And you said that you have been trainee program in the KUKA system part of the company, which is very interesting because, as I said in the former podcast episode, we were talking about how to get into manufacturing, and a lot of things are happening through KUKA systems or a system integrator who is doing the actually integration part, the deployment, right? And when we're talking about startups, very often this part is neglected because there's almost no knowledge, right? So you have people, let's say in robotics, you do have hardware people. If it's a physical product, you do have software people, machine learning engineers or programmer. But if you're clever enough, you're getting sales and marketing very early on in your startup. But something that I haven't seen yet myself, even with companies that are with a venture capital, is people as in an integrator or a deployment coordinator, or whatever kind of name you would like to give this person or department, is been brought into the startup company very, very late on, if at all, right? But in the very end, you cannot play with the big guys if you don't have someone who will deploy the system, right? Because very few companies are doing the integration themselves, but the majority of companies will buy turnkey solutions. This wasn't me enough talking. I'm interested in getting to know. You said you had different countries, different internships, or different departments you've been part of. Maybe you can dive a little bit into that because I'm very curious how KUKA is doing in the US, for example.
Yeah. So the internship is really you go through the complete value chain. So from design through purchasing, through project management, and then on-site commissioning, that you know at the end what it's all about, this long project duration time you have, how it all comes together. And that's on-site then, and you see if it works or if it does not work, what people were designing for a long time. The site period is, in most of the case, or it was at that time, always abroad. So I was in the US, and most of my other colleagues, I think we were 6 or 7, who did that training program were abroad.
You were saying that some of the projects take 3 to 6 years, especially if you go, for example, in like automotive, and you being in the very first. So you said in an OEM. Were you surprised how long the cycles are? I mean, now with all the knowledge you have and the experience, it's obvious that these things take time, right? But when you started, were you surprised that these projects have such a big time, such a long timeline?
Yeah, definitely. And talking also to other people who do system integration, I think the automotive project take a long time, maybe the longest. Some reasons are because it's such a high degree of automation. The other thing is the schedule of the OEM customers or companies is that if you introduce or if you build a new line, the line is not built only for one model. So you have 4 models, 6 models, and you don't introduce all models at the same time. So they start with the limousine, then maybe then with the station wagon, then the convertible comes. So it's always 3 months, 6 months delay from one model to the other. And that is why, okay, you start with the high runner model, which is the limousine, or depending on the car. So it's the limousine, then half a year later or 3 months later, you do the station wagon, then the convertible. So, and that is then the time which takes on-site place, that you need 3 to 6 months until the next model is launched.
What I really found interesting, now that this time lays behind you, maybe you can give a little bit more, let's say, neutral opinion about certain things. For example, I mean, within robotics, the last few years were very interesting, especially when we're considering the startups, what we can see. And I'm not talking about the recent development in humanoid robots, which I'm a huge fan of, and everyone who is listening knows this already. But when we're looking at robotics, and we do have, let's say, the big 3 or 4 or 5 players in the world, the game has been very consistent for 30 years, 30, 40 years. So there was no huge development, right? And I was speaking about this earlier. I think not necessarily only Universal Robots, but the cobot market did something to robots, right? And with more and more AI or startups getting involved in that topic as well, no code or a little bit less coding was introduced fairly recently, so to speak, the last 5, maybe 10 years. And so it was always very expensive to have a robot, to maintain a robot, to change things on a robot, because you always need, if you have a KUKA robot, you do need a robot KUKA programmer. If you have a FANUC, you do need a FANUC programmer, right? So now with all the startups trying to change that, so it's easier to program, so more people on the shop floor level can actually access those robots. What are your thoughts on that? I'm really interested in.
I would really differentiate between automotive and the rest of industry.
Sure.
And the reason why is automotive has those 5 to 7 years life cycle of a new Golf. It's becoming shorter, but it's still 5 years of a Golf generation. And during that 5 years, not so much things are changing within a body shop. So therefore, the need of the robotics companies and the main revenue and the main quantities, robot companies, and that's all the same, if it's KUKA, Fanuc, ABB, the main quantities you do in body shop. And you do also not in the final assembly, you have it really in the body shop where all the car is welded, glued, riveted together. So there's the majority of robots are in automotive and in body shop with a long life cycle where the need of changing programs, today we produce this, tomorrow we produce this, quantities are changing, models are changing, you do not have. So, and that is how all they become big and not lazy, but there was not need for their major revenue to have new innovative things to make it more easy to program a robot. In other industries and startups nobody from the startups wanted to go to automotive because they are already the big players there. They make their money there, they make their quantity there. But with the new concept and with the smaller robots and the cobots, and I did sales for, when I left KUKA, I said, I make now my hobby to my new job, because at KUKA, I also did the LBR-IVA, which is one of the first cobots on the market. That was also always a little side business to sell automotive customers also in cobot. They were all interested and everybody wanted to have one. They tested one for 1 year, for 2 years, then maybe the second. Because if a new technology goes to automotive, it needs to have the highest reliability. I mean, you have a reliability rate of 99% because you don't want that the production stops. That costs you 100,000 euro if it's for 1 minute standstill of the Golf production. So for the new concepts, for the new ideas of robots and cobots are there, it's not the automotive sector. So, and that I would say that's maybe why the startups with the new technology were faster there than the big ones who were focused, driven by their revenue and driven by their customer to have the technology focus on the robot needs to run 24/7 for 5 years. How difficult is the program doesn't matter if you program 1 day or 2 days, because at the end it needs to run reliable for 24/7, 5 years.
I mean, all the points are very valid, and I have to say you're doing a very good job in explaining, going into detail, and showing all the pros and cons, because a lot of people not 100% aware of all those things you were just mentioning, right? But it's also a sales speech, right? So you said that you made your hobby to your work. We come to this later. What I want to ask is, I mean, you were totally right regarding it doesn't matter if it's 1 or 2 days, because it runs for up to 7 years, right? So there's no difference between 1 or 3 days, obviously. But as I'm working for a startup and we're working with automotive, I do know what you mean. We're trying to avoid that because the list of requirements are so high, as you said, because liability, or it needs to be very reliable and it needs to be very precise for a long period of time. So, and startups don't have that experience to offer that kind of accuracy, that kind of stamina over time. But I do see that, especially, and you were mentioning this, not in the middle of it, but the end of line, for example, you have still a lot of manual assembling, and here we do see automotive using cobots. But I mean, you're obviously right with the quality of the difference of a cobot and a robot. There is a certain level of quality that comes with it. But what I was thinking about regarding the time frame and things that are changing, I would like to get your opinion on that before we jump to the next topic. When you see those videos from Tesla, for example, or what they have in plan regarding the body shop time, so how a car gets assembled, the way a car was assembled was very much the same for 30 years or 40 years. So they as you said, all the different parts that needed to be put together. But now with EVs, where we get rid of a lot of things, you don't need a lot of things because there's much less parts that are involved, right? Because there's no engine. So all the side parts, third level suppliers, they are all gone, right? Or the majority of it. But have you seen the videos how a car gets assembled, and what are your thoughts on that?
Even, I mean, Tesla is always in terms of being innovative and disruptive. I mean, they were even disruptive in the body shop, not just because it's an EV and they need less parts because no combustion engine, only a battery and a servo motor. Even the whole sheet metal, the front structure, they said, why do we need 150 sheet metal parts welded together? We do one aluminum die casting part, which is so difficult to do, so complex, but they just did it. And everybody before said, no, that cannot work. And they just did it. Not just, it also took them a longer time and a lot of hassles, but they did it, really reducing sheet metal parts just by a different production technology and with a really different mindset. How can you produce a car? And they changed a lot. And a lot of other car manufacturers really looked a little bit jealous what they did. Not just because it's electric car. So that was interesting, and they're always the driver. And you spoke humanoid robots. I guess that Tesla will have a fair share on that because they are their own customer. And that's, you said nobody wants to do the integration if you're a startup, or it's difficult to do then a global rollout, including integration. If you're your own customer already, and the demand of humanoids you would need at the end, you decide how many, if you're a customer and manufacturer of technology, you decide how many you bring in, and you can do very quick iterations. So I guess that and you see the speed, what they are doing, compared to, I mean, Boston Dynamics, they all did their ground basic R&D for humanoids, and Tesla will overroll and be one of the fastest, just of the fact they're manufacturer and customer on the same time.
It's a very good point. I think the majority of people are not thinking about this, but yeah, as you're right. I mean, Boston Dynamics was an R&D company for over 20 years, but I mean, on the other side, it has been bought by Hyundai, right? So they are car manufacturer themselves, and we have seen the newest electric version. It was impressive. It is impressive. So let's see what comes out of it. Just the other day, I read somebody said, let's do a fair or a trade show just with the humanoids, all the, like, on one stage, having all the different companies on one stage, and then let's just not fight against each other, but let's see what are the skills, what are the capabilities of them. But I think we're drifting.
NVIDIA was just did that. I mean, at a big presentation when left and right where all the humanoids were standing, it was impressive. And every company really has also their little different approach, more AI, less AI, more machine learning, hardware, software. And it will be, for sure, there's so many interesting companies, and there will be more than one company at the end, for sure. I just wanted to say that Tesla, because they are a huge customer already by themselves, they have a little advantage compared to a humanoid startup who needs to look for customers and need to prove that you can have your humanoid in your production.
I think one of the other advantages that they have is, if we're looking at Germany, in which, and I'm not getting me wrong here because I'm a socialist by heart, it is much harder to fire people, right? So if you're looking at a German car manufacturer, for example, which has been here for almost 100 years or 80 years, 70 years, 60 years, then you're growing very organically. And that means you have a lot of people that are not necessarily needed, but they're always busy. So they keep themselves busy and they keep themselves in place. So if you say, I'm getting rid of instead of having 200 parts, I'm just having 3 parts. So you do actually need a less people, obviously, in on the construction side, but manufacturing side, in the entire circle, as you said, right? And I think here innovation to do is much harder because people are in positions where they ensure, maybe not willingly but unwillingly, that the company will still rely on them. And I think here, if you just cut 30%, if you can just cut 30% of your company, you ensure that the majority of people, you will only keep the very necessary people, right? And so everyone is up to speed. And I can speak here, maybe, so this is maybe industry insights, but having your own integrator, just buying your own integrator to being faster in integrating, which is I've seen here in Germany Tesla doing, then you know what kind of speed it is, right? And I see the speed they're moving. But coming back to your way you said you left KUKA,
interesting because
please.
we as TQ, we're doing the same. So when I started the cobots business for TQ, TQ was a manufacturer of the Franca Imica on behalf of Franca Imica. So one of the most innovative cobots which are on the market. We produced in behalf of Franca Imica. We used the robot on our own shop floor in our own production. And we sold those solutions which we developed for our own production, those we sold. So it was really producing, using the robot really on the shop floor in production and knowing what the requirements for production are on a robot, and then selling a robot and the solutions with the robot. So because then we had all the benefits and the speed and the know-how, not only theoretical, how you program a robot and how your application needs to look like. We did it for ourselves because we are a medium-sized company, and without automation doing electronics in Germany, you need to have a higher degree of automation to be competitive to East Europe and to Asia.
I mean, you were just mentioning it now. So you were producing for Franca Amica, and maybe you can give us a little bit insight in what happened and how things turned out.
Yeah, I mean, it was in the media just last fall, the insolvency of Franca Imica after they did a very good start into the market and won prizes and had a really innovative product, programming through apps, and a very high degree of sensitivity and the smooth hand guiding. And we started at the beginning our conversation, sales and the product itself needs to work together, because the best product at the end does not help if nobody is using the robot, or if you can't sell in a high quantity to get a revenue to pay the check at the end of the month. So the sales were not big enough for the company. We did a very good share on the industrial side, selling the Franca robot, but overall, at the end, they run into insolvency, and at the end, Agile Robotics from Munich took over. They took also over the production. So now Franca Robotics, how they're named now, really the future is secured. It's get further produced, which was also very important, or at least if you're working 4 years and doing sales for them and having your car with the robot printed and really be convinced of that product, and being convinced for cobots be used for small and medium-sized businesses, because it really makes an advantage if you just simple task to load a part into a machine, press a button and wait for 1 minute and then taking it out. This we can't afford in Germany, actually. And there you need to use robots, and a cobot is really the entrance level for companies with not so much know-how on robots, and all you said with AI and tools and software tools to get it programmed more easily, that you don't need to be the expert. That is really all valid for small and medium-sized companies who do not run 5 years the same product. because most of the companies here in Germany have not the highest volume in output. So they change their production very often. And for them, cobots, I'm still very convinced the cobots are a very good choice to use. And if then the thing you're working for 4 years stops from one day to the other, then it's very good now to know, okay, the future is secured. They still get produced in Germany, in Bavaria, in the Allgäu region, just 30 kilometers away from where we produce the robot. So they get produced, so everybody who wants to have a Franca still can buy a Franca and use them in their production.
So they took over from TQ, they took over the production side.
Yeah. I mean, because they had a big production site. They're also producing the Yuanda. You talked with Jens in one of the podcasts before. So they're producing the U. They had a production site, and they produce the Franca. And Franca is still in Munich. It's produced in the Allgäu region, so just some kilometers away.
I mean, we don't need to get into detail because I'm curious, because you have agility and then you have now Franca, and I'm curious to see, maybe I will be able to get one of these people speaking in the podcast and telling me more about maybe a few more insights and what's on the roadmap and what their plans for those companies are. But let's go back to Robert, and please tell me how you're working for one of the biggest robot companies in the world. And then you decide, you know what, I think I did my quite share of learning and working here for this company, but I would, like you said it before, make my hobby to my work. Maybe you can share a little bit how you made this big decision, right? Because it was, I guess, a big decision for you.
It was a big decision because all my life was KUKA, to be honest. I did there my internship, my diploma thesis, my trainee program. I met my wife there. My older son went to the kindergarten at KUKA. So yeah, my whole life was a KUKA life, my whole professional life. But then I moved away from Augsburg. I moved in the Allgäu region, which is more than 1 hour drive from door to door. And that was before Corona. So I was driving 4 years every day, 2.5 hours on the car. So the decision was not driven by away from KUKA, away from Augsburg, away from automotive. It was really motivated by finding a job closer to my home. And as I said, it was before Corona, before really home office was that established. So I was looking for some interesting opportunities for interesting jobs closer to my home. And then they were looking for a account manager or head of sales for the robotics business. And I said, hey, and Franca, there's also a history between Franca and KUKA. I mean, the founder, it was a KB and then Kastanienbaum. There was even a partnership between KUKA and Franca. So that robot was familiar to me. So I said, yeah, that is actually perfect. And yeah, that's why I changed then. If I would have lived in Augsburg, I probably would still be there. To be honest, that's really the motivation, was because closer to work to home.
It's interesting that you're saying this, because it shows, I mean, even for 4 years driving 2.5 hours per day shows some sort of dedication, right? You're not leaving that behind you easily, but I'm happy that you found something that was interesting you enough. And I think you said that you were working there for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So walk us through what happened in between and afterwards. You are mentioning now the department of Franca from the TQ group. Maybe you can tell us a little bit what happened in your life, not only necessarily on the business side, but what happened for you. How was that time for you?
Yeah, it was a little shock, yes. If it's decided, okay, the company you work for will not continue this business unit for what you quit your former job and started their job. But I really, TQ is a family-owned business, self-financed family-owned business, and that was the big difference then from a global incorporation, working then for a family-owned self-financed, even if it's 2,000 people, but it's still family-owned. The founder is still there, and you meet the founder every day, and it's his company, and he's working for a family who running the business, who are not just in the board, so really running the business. So I said, you mentioned the dedication. If there's any future with TQ, I really stay. And then the chance came for the drives business unit within TQ, so which are producing robo drives, so industrial drive systems for robots, for humanoids, for other industry things. So it was for me another step, still automation, robotics, robo drive. It just said, okay, perfect. I mean, it's still what I do, what I did over the almost last 20 years. So I'm still in robotics, I'm still in automation, and I'm responsible by accident, of course, for the robotic customers. Because that is what I do.
What a coincidence.
Yeah.
I remember that when we spoke before that, I was in the last episode, I gave a little hint, I gave a little sneak peek into what's happening with me next. But and we were talking about this as well. So I'm not giving away the final declaration about this, but you said that you do have customers, right? And you do have big customers as well. And so you said it's a family-owned business, and I'm a huge fan of nothing against VC companies and nothing against shareholders, but I'm very interested in this kind of companies because it shows thinking long term, not thinking in 4 years, not thinking in whatever kind of circles you have in mind when we're talking about the other companies. So I'm really happy that you say, so this is one of the reasons why I stayed here, because I think there's long time commitment, right? If you run a family and you are not selling things fast, or you're thinking about short-term gains that you can achieve, right? This is much more sustainable and interesting. When we're talking about KUKA, this is a topic I'm not touching now, but I mean, the company was owned by families, right? And then there was a time where they decided that there's I don't know what the main reason was behind that, but the company is not German anymore, right? It's a Chinese-owned company, or a lot of shares had been. I mean,
98, 97, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think out of pure panic, the German government trying to save things, and I remember it was very interesting to read the news about KUKA. I mean, in the very end, it's a global market, it's a global business, and when shareholders are involved, some of them do have long-term thinking, but sometimes you do need to you need to watch out for yourself, right? So I'm not here to judge anything, but interesting that you say. So this is what's happening with the TQ group. When you said, I remember that we talked about your different life stages, and you've been to the US, and I'm not sure if you went to the US with your wife as well, if she was in the US as well while you were there, or maybe this happened after.
That was the theory.
Sorry?
That was the theory, that we are at the same time. But at that time, it was still my girlfriend, and we both talked with our bosses, and the idea, hey, we would like to go abroad and possibly together. Then a project from Volkswagen was awarded to KUKA, so I went with that project to KUKA North America and did the project management then over there. And my girlfriend said, yeah, if there's a chance, I also would like to go to the US. So she also went to the US at the same time. But after a couple of months, I went to Asia for another automotive project through KUKA. So she was in the US and I was in Asia. So in theory, we were there together. Practically, it was only the shorter term we were together.
What are the plans? Are there any plans? I mean, you said, I think when we talked about this, you said that traveling and everything lies now behind you, and you are happy that you are now in a stage where you can enjoy the fruits of your last 20 years. And so you will most likely stay in Germany, stay with the company, and continue working in the robotic niche, right?
Yeah, that is the plan. And the drives business compared to the robotics business. So when I did robotic sales, it was really the DACH region, so Germany, Austria, Switzerland, because there were other sales partners for Franca who did the rest of the for the drives business. TQ is a technology company, and it's our own product, so it's our own TQ product. We are now the original manufacturer. So we are the original manufacturer. And so now our sale is global again. So even if we don't do the sales directly around the globe, we also have distributors. So I take care and build up new sales networks, new distributor, new customers around the globe. So it is now again a more international business for me. But with the headquarter and our production hub at the Ammersee, where we produce the drives. So it's business trips, but not being 1 year on site.
Maybe you can give a little insight and say, so these drives are necessary for robots anyways, right? The majority of robot companies, how is it? Are you selling the same drives? And we don't need to use any names here, but is that such a universal product that it can be used theoretically or practically in any robot out there, or is, some companies are doing them themselves?
The drive itself is at the pure, wait 1 second.
So for the people that are just listening and not watching, because I do know that if you just listening, we have now, I think, a little bit of, yes, now we have some drives seeing here.
So, and it's a frameless drive. Normally, motors or drives, it's a block and you have a shaft out there and some cables going in. So that's your motor block. And you use your motor, you try to find, okay, where the mounting points where you can mount then your motor block. For robotics and also for applications where you don't have so much space, it's a frameless kit. So it's only the stator and the rotor. And this goes in there. And the motor block around the housing, and especially for robotics, they can create now completely by themselves. And if you think on a cobot with their really lean and slick design, and the joints are much smaller than for industrial robots, you save a lot of space by integrating such a stator directly in your architecture of the robot arm. How the housing looks then around and how you integrate it in your arm architecture, that's individual for every robot manufacturer. But at the end, you need some copper where the power goes through, which creates the magnet field and the rotor rotates. And that is standard. You have in different sizes from small to big. But the customization comes from the housing, from the interconnection, how you want to control that, from your driver, from your gearbox. But so the drive itself is kind of a standard product. The variance is on a small, maybe some windings more or less. But at the end, it's a standard product which can be integrated however you want. So it's a huge design freedom working with such kind of motors then.
Coming back to the question, I do have the problem, or we in Micropsy have the problem that we have customers that are working on very edgy topics, and they don't want they don't want it to be known that they are working together with us, right? So for marketing departments, this is nightmare. This is a nightmare, and for sales also, because you're going from customer to customer, and customer would like to see, so where has this been deployed, and where can I see this? Where can I see the use cases? And then you say, unfortunately, I cannot show you, right? And then they're asking, but then you ask the reverse question. So if I'm able to sell this to you, can we make a plan together for our marketing department and a sales department to show what kind of use case we're working on? And then you get a big no, right? So are you able to tell us, is there any public use cases, public customers that you guys have that you are able to share with us? Who are your customers?
So as we're also a technology leader with those drive systems, so it has the highest torque density, so how much torque you get out of the size and weight. It is the highest or the most highest in the market. And customers, and it's very similar what you just said, when they're using the technology leader, they want to tell everybody, hey, my product is so good because we have the best, using one of the best motors. So in many cases, it's the same. We are in, and we mentioned so many times KUKA, so we are in the KUKA LBR IVA. And that is, the KUKA LBR IVA was originally designed by the Deutsches Luft- und Raumfahrtzentrum. Those motors were originally designed by the Deutschen Luft- und Raumfahrtzentrum, so it was a spin-off where TQ started many years ago to be part of that spin-off and integrated it in TQ. So it's KUKA, it's Robco, the modular robot. It's
Munich-based, right? Munich-based.
Yeah, Munich-based. They did also very interesting concept of having a modular robot. We have PAR Robotics, which is a Spanish humanoid robot, which are out there on the market. So there are some robot companies using our drives. There are also smaller industry customers, which you do not really know, which are using it because they can build now smaller and lighter and getting maybe more speed or more precision to it.
Nice. Always keen in German champions, hidden champions, that's how we call them. So you have very small, medium-sized companies in Germany that are actually worldwide leaders in that specific niche or market or product. And so it's nice to see, because even we do know a few big German companies, right? As the big automotive companies that are the most, I think the brands that are shining above all the other ones. Over 90% of companies in Germany are small and medium-sized companies, right? So this is still the backbone of the economy. And it's nice to see that some things are very, very unique and very precise, and you don't have so much competition on that market. And it's nice to see that there are some companies are doing very well for this, like internationally. I do know that we will see each other in the future, because there's some conversation going on between your company and other companies I might or might not be part of. So this is more on a personal note here. Because I'm still looking forward to announce it. This week will actually be my last week at Micropsy. So yeah, I'm still thinking about a way how to make it public. I mean, I'm not taking myself too seriously or too important, but it's funny because some people are asking, and I'm keen to say where I'm going to. I think I was mentioning this to you already. And yeah, you said I'm always welcome to visit your place, and I think I will take this offer. But I'm actually always interested in bringing people together, not only company wise but people wise. And I spoke to Tobias the other day. I had a podcast episode with him as well. So this Tobias Ritzler from Obermines. And he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna have a podcast episode with Robert." And he said, "Yeah, he's a good friend of mine, or we know each other pretty well, and when we talk, and we like to talk. So I'm happy. I am happy that I was able to get you for this podcast."
Hannover
Yeah.
Messe would be your stage.
Yeah, Hannover Messe is good. Just today, actually, I post interesting video from Micropsy because we do wrench hanging on hooks
Mhm.
in real time, and we do have a nice booth over there. But I do know that my colleagues from the marketing and sales department, they are doing a much better job at being in the fair. I have a few projects that I need to come bring to an end within my department, and yeah, I'm happy to do this within this week. So in May, I'm actually taking some time off. Taking paternity leave for a month before I start into my new job. So this was more on a personal note now. I'm very curious to see how our way will cross in the future. And I might or might not call you again about getting Peter Mohn on the phone because he's ignoring my messages, he's ignoring my connections. I'm not important enough, which I can obviously understand. He is a very busy man. Just last week or the week before last, they announced the one of the biggest years for KUKA I think it was 4 billion in revenue, was quite a success. So happy to see that some companies are still doing good business. And yeah, I might or might not call you and ask you to find your way through connections to secure me a call with them. Thank you, Robert, for taking the time. I wish you a nice day. Take
You
care.
too. Bye bye. Yeah, bye.
Bye bye.